Hey guys, welcome back to Not Two, but One Girl.
One boy.
And one teacher.
Today, we're introducing our guest for today, our teacher, Mr. Cam.
What's up, kids? How's it going?
Not good.
Oh my God. Already with you kids.
And today, we wanted to talk more about parenting styles from the perspective of a parent, from Gen X, and from us, the children Gen Z.
World's worst and greatest generation.
So I wanted to start off by asking, how were you parented? What made you so fucked up?
Yeah, no, thanks for starting off the podcast this way. Why am I so fucked up? All right, let me tell you why I'm so fucked up. I guess at being Gen X, like the way we were raised, like nobody watched us when we went outside to go play. Nobody gave a shit. And do you know what a latchkey kid is?
No.
Let me explain what a latchkey kid is. It's like our parents would just give us the house key and expect us to come home and do the dishes and like put ourselves to bed and do our own homework. And like we didn't see our parents till like nighttime or sometimes the next morning. But that's the way we were raised. Like we were independent from like, grade 8. So a lot of us were probably raised by Nintendo and TV since we were 10 years old. And so that we had a lot more freedom, I guess, to play outside and do things that your generation, I guess, does not do.
How do you think that affected you as a person? Like, what made you this way? Do you think all those beatings took like a little bit of brain cells out of your head?
Yeah, well, okay, so a little child abuse is fine, I guess.
Just a little?
No. So we got a decent amount of getting smacked around as kids, right? Like I think when you think about people and their parenting styles, like our parents were gone, and then when they came home, they're like, "Oh, the dishes aren't done." Smack. "Oh, the house isn't clean." Smack. I'm like, well, God damn it. How about a fucking hug first, mom and dad? No? Okay, smack first and then, do the chores.
I heard that for your generation as well. That was also the times where you were allowed to beat other children, like spankings and all that.
Yeah, man. Like I remember my dad straight up backhanding me inside of the Times supermarket
Oh, yikes.
for I don't even know what reason. Like getting whooped for no good reason, or there probably was a reason. I don't know what the reason was. You're a child. You don't know these things.
Yeah, true.
It's like, oh, I got a beating. Well, thanks. But I will say this. I think having that experience has probably made me a lot more mentally resilient, and I like to pick on your generation, than your generation. I think it's made me more mentally resilient to a lot of more trauma.
I feel like our generation's more mentally weak though.
Yes. Yeah. No, for example, like if may I continue? Thank you. Like mindfulness. Mindfulness did not fucking exist when we were growing up. And in your generation, you have mindfulness classes and mindfulness moments where you just sit and quietly think about things. We didn't fucking have that shit. It was just called being bored, and then just called sitting at the bus stop and with no phone or no music, and you just sit there and you just think. Like now we have to force your generation to like calm down and think about your feelings.
Is that why you keep calling us snowflakes?
Yes, I do. Like I typically pick on your generation because whenever I ask, like even in class, right? Like when I ask people to do stuff and they don't want to do it, they just become like mentally shut down. Like for example, we have 2 kids walking in the class right now and they always make excuses about things. But you know what? Why can't they just get to work? That's just their own nonsense, I guess.
How do you think you were raised, Chance?
I was very neglected. So all that Gen X like trauma did not go onto me, which I'm really glad. I'm glad I wasn't beat as a kid, or at least I was threatened. I remember my dad would beat me with a belt or like a hanger.
You still got beat then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
There you go.
yeah,
Hanger.
yeah, same. But for me, in my perspective, my parents were more overprotective of me. Because my dad went through all this trauma, he decided not to try and inflict that to me. But then, of course, he's still like kind of, fucked up a little way. So he's tries his best to not reflect that when he's yelling at me, but he'll never beat me or anything. It's just that he still gets angry a lot. He has anger issues. He has a lot of issues, but he tries his best to not, let it affect me.
I feel like the parents or like Gen X as parents, they don't hit their kids. They just like verbally abuse them, not
So
physically.
I don't hit my kids, but I definitely do the verbal part. I'm like, what are you doing? What, like the same way I teach, the same way I teach is the same way I raise my kids. Like, what are you doing? Why are you screaming and crying? Like, what's happening with you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't hit my kids. Like, when we were growing up, and like, we got the lickings too. But if you want to talk about the parents of Gen X if you want to talk about my parents as kids and what were their parents like, Jesus Christ. I mean, they probably got severe beatings, right? So
Yeah.
that, like, not to be all sensitive about it, but that generational trauma carries through. And I'm really happy that that when I come to my parents, you know, when they hit me, I don't hit my kids. And so, you know, that's just something we got to work through. That's just some shit we got to eat as Gen X parents.
I see.
Do you think it's like gonna cycle back?
Oh yeah. Right? Like I can only imagine what a Gen X or Gen Z parent is going to be like. Like, I'm super curious what your lives are going to be like 15 years from now. Like, what kind of parents will you be?
Actually, have you seen some of the Gen Z parents nowadays? You know how there's teenagers that are getting pregnant and having kids,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And I would see some of those parents online try to be more friendly to their kid rather than, you know, actually trying to parent, which I guess builds like them as a character, but also it kind of isn't parenting. It's more trying to be their best friend,
Yeah.
which I don't think they
Yeah,
need.
there's like no discipline at all.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I think we're missing an entire generation of millennials here that are parents of like Gen Z kids now, because we see that. So like, from a teacher parent point of view, we see it in like administration where the kids like vaping.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
we're like, oh, so we bust the kid for vaping. Like, where'd you get this shit from? Well, goddamn, they got it from their parents because their parents are trying to be their friends. Like, little Billy, let me fucking buy you a vape because you got like 2 A's out of all of your F's. And then so they buy the kid a vape pen, and then the kid's just vaping. And every time we ask, where'd you get it from? Oh, mom. Oh, dad, my older brother, my older sister, my older friends. That's where they get it from. I think it's so stupid that we're just saying, stop these kids from vaping when their parents are clearly buying it for them. Like, the whole millennials, like, if there's somebody we need to pick on today, I think it's fucking millennials.
No, I agree completely. I don't really like the millennial generation
They
that well.
cringe the fuck out of me.
You know why? I think because just like every generation, they're holding on to this last moment of youth, and they're like, it's going to be over. Because if you think about millennials, they're in their late 30s, early 40s, right?
Yeah.
Maybe mid 30s at the earliest. So they're holding on to this very last moment of being quote unquote cool and hip, and then they're fucking done. Like, I accepted it already. I'm nearly 50 years old, just about. Like, I'm done. I'm good. I'm solid. I enjoyed my life. I enjoyed my youth. It was a blast. I don't talk about it constantly, but I love that it happened, and I love all the experiences that I've had for the most part. And then, but this millennial generation is just like, oh, you know, I'm still cool. Like, dude, take your fucking leopard print tight ass skirt off with your goddamn like 38-year-old ass hanging everything out. Like, can you just dress a little more adult? Like, you're not in high school. You're clearly not Gen Z. And then these kids with these Gen Z kids with millennial parents are like, oh, let's hang out and let's be friends. I'm like, I'm not my kid's friend. I'm not. I don't know how your parents are, but like my kid and I are not friends. I love them. They're my kids, but we're not friends.
Yeah, you're a parent.
I'm a parent. I'm your number one supporter. Buy you shit? Yeah. Take you to, soccer or whatever? Yeah. Color in your coloring book? Sure. But let's just be clear what the role is here. I'm the adult. I'm the parent. Like, students who want to be fucking friends. I'm like, no, fuck that. We're not friends. I think I said that on day one. Like, in my slides for school, I tell the students straight up, we are not friends. Yeah.
I remember that, yeah. But
Was it traumatizing?
no, not really. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be, no? Teacher, student, that's it.
Yeah, because teachers that try to be friends with their students, they end up crossing some weird fucking lines sometimes. And that's why it says in our handbook, don't, have relationships with students. Why the fuck is that in our handbook? It's super obvious. Don't do it. Jesus Christ.
Sorry, this is a little off topic, but that reminded me of this one video I saw when we were talking about millennials raising their kids. It was about this 7-year-old girl that cut another girl's hair and didn't feel bad about it. In fact, she was like confident. She was like, oh yeah, I did that. She was being mean to me, so I cut her hair, and had no remorse whatsoever. So I'm kind of wondering, how were they raised to be like that? I feel it's back to that best friend child kind of thing where they try to teach their child to be more confident and more, putting themselves out there so that they don't get taken advantage of. But that also makes them into more of an asshole or just like a bad person in general.
Yeah. Like a chance, maybe even you see it too. Like you'll see these bad kids and you watch their parents pick them up and their parents look exactly like the kid.
Oh yeah.
Or like they're blasting music in the fucking school parking lot. I'm like, Jesus Christ, where are you right now? Like you're not at the strip club where your mother works. Just just turn that music down for a bit.
Damn.
And I see like that's where that's the Gen X shit. Like we can just be like really underhanded and super passive aggressive, and just be very overt about shit. But no, I like when we see even as a teacher, like we can call the parents like, hey, your kid's doing this and this, and the very first thing we get is, oh, well, what did maybe he doesn't like you as a teacher. I'm like, motherfucker, are you blaming me for your child's shit behavior?
Damn.
It's like I don't sit with your kid, and I did this one math thing with a parent years ago, and the parent is angry at the teacher that the kid's not getting like the best attention or whatever. The kid's being like overtly a jerk, and I did the math. I'm like, what is the percentage of time I spend with your kid every week? And then we did the math. It's like out of how many hours are in a week? 128, something like that. 124 times 7. I think it's 128.
No clue.
Anyway, yeah, you math it at home, podcast listeners. And then so I said I spend 3 hours out of the 128, and I think that percentage works out to less than 1% or just about 1%. I don't know. I don't have a calculator, but I said like let's just say it's 1%. If I'm 1%, if I see your kid 1% of the time per week, how am I 100% responsible for your kid's terrible behavior?
I feel like some of these parents just have the audacity to blame other people for their mistakes, and they don't want to acknowledge it because they think that they're being a good parent, but in reality, they are really not.
Yeah, they're not being great parents at all. Like Chance, how like I know like you talked about your parents and like you have a new stepdad, I guess. What do you want to call him?
Legal guardian.
Legal guardian.
Oh God, it's so fucking clinical. All right, how's that relationship?
I'm kind of glad that he raised me because my parents did not get along very well. So then they split. And then my mom left, which was very sad because I loved her, but now I'm getting really annoyed with her. But anyway, she didn't, how do I say this?
It might bring up a lot of trauma for you.
No.
Okay.
No. I'm kind of glad I went through it because it brought me to where I am today.
Made you grow?
Yeah.
Yes, that's some Gen X shit right there. It made you grow.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
And my dad, I don't know how to say this.
It's okay, man. Look, if you don't want to talk about, and I didn't mean to hijack this part of your show, but I'm like, first, I guess first and foremost, I'm not going to hug you.
Yeah.
So you're not getting that from me. That's another Gen X thing. Like we don't get hugs. Like does your generation get a lot of hugs and from your parents, like hugs and
No.
Used to, but not anymore. No.
Yeah, I think that's not something we received a lot of, is like affection.
Yeah.
It's like we didn't get affection, we didn't really show love. But on the other hand, what did we get in return is like a lot of fucking freedom. We
True.
had a lot of freedom. I mean, like we would disappear till the sun went down, and then like we would just from morning to night, because obviously we didn't have cell phones and shit like that. Like we just disappeared. Like I remember stealing like a couple of bucks from my mom's purse, and then going to the arcade to play video games at the mall, and just like we walked there. It was like miles, and we didn't realize how long it was at the time. We walked like 3-4 miles to the mall, and then like walk back, and then it was great. I mean, not the stealing part, but everything else.
Bad influence.
Yeah.
But for me, like I said before, I was raised with more overprotective parents. And I feel like because of that, throughout my childhood, I wasn't really able to grow. My parents are both working, but I was put into summer programs rather than being like having to raise myself up. So I was constantly surrounded with people, constantly had to socially interact. And at the time, that was really good for me because I was a social person. But I feel like with our generation, there was also a big issue with quarantine, the COVID time, where we were
That's right.
isolated for 2-3 years.
Yeah, you guys had distance learning and you guys couldn't go out.
Yeah, so throughout that time, I became a lot more introverted and I didn't really talk to people. I didn't know how to anymore. I think that also really affected like who I was. And I think that also affected me mentally as well. My parents, like I said, because they were overprotective, even after the social distancing bans were lifted, I wasn't allowed to go out. So I spent all my time inside and I had to make friends online as well. Some of the people that I know now are actually because I met them online, which I'm glad for, but at the same time, I feel like I wanted to actually socially interact with people, get to know them in person because online is, in my opinion, I don't like talking to people online that much. I would prefer having a normal social chat with them.
Like
or
a
being able to hang
regular
out.
person.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
a regular adult.
But I'm glad that I'm able to talk to people more now, but trust me when I say my first year of high school, absolutely terrible. I would never want to do it again. I was so
Oh yeah, that was like when we straight out of
yeah.
quarantine.
I was so like socially anxious, I would say, that I couldn't talk to people. I really wanted to, but then I felt like I didn't know how to anymore.
Yeah, that's a legit thing. Like I remember when students first came back from distance learning, and I talk about this story a lot because it always struck me. Like a kid that sits on the back table took out a hot. You know what a Hot Wheel is? Like a little toy car.
Oh,
Yeah.
He took out a Hot Wheel from his pocket and then started rolling it on the table as I'm doing my lecture. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "What?" I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, nothing." And then he put the toy away in his pocket. And I'm like, "Dude, that's a cool toy car, but can you like wait?" And it's like, holy shit. I keep forgetting that they haven't been in school for years. So they missed out on all of the social norms and cues of like what to do with other people. And he probably thought he was still at home on his laptop, on the camera. And then he's playing with his fucking Hot Wheels. Like, holy shit, he took out a fucking toy. Like, just start playing with it. I'm like, wow.
I feel like that also spans back to attention spans. I feel like our attention spans are getting worse.
Yes.
Like I said, I mentioned this in another podcast, but we were raised with internet as well.
Yeah.
And we had all these different things, which kind of, also affects who we grow up as, what raised us. So I feel like partially the internet raised me. And I thank God I wasn't chronically online, but my parents would let me go on the internet from time to time when they were busy and didn't, have time for me. So I would be with my brother, like playing games, but that would also expose me to a lot of things that I feel shouldn't be exposed to a child until they're of a certain age.
Like what? Like you were watching like murder and death videos?
Kind of, yeah.
Oh, you sick fucker.
What? It's what was shown to me, but it wasn't
What's your-
completely.
Shown to you.
Oh my God, what's her algorithm like, right? Like if you look through her YouTube algorithm, what is it?
Okay, wait, my YouTube is normal now, but
Oh.
I feel like,
What was it? What was it then?
I don't know, it was like slight gore videos, I would say.
Oh.
It's not heavy or anything. It's just like, a My Little Pony character dying, I
No,
would
no,
say.
no. You probably started like watching like cats being run over and then like
Okay, not like
escalate
that.
from there.
I love animals. I would never. But I don't know. I remember seeing like ghost stories and stuff when I was younger as well. Or just kind of being exposed to the internet a little bit more, learning about, I feel, sex education a little bit too early.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It was a big thing on the internet. Exposure,
Well, pornography is a big thing on the internet.
Exactly.
But holy Christ. Like that, okay, so that's a thing,
I'm
right?
being honest here.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. So I remember like when growing up, there was no internet. Like internet didn't come about until I was like maybe 14 or 15 years old. Something like that. Something later in life. I think almost like I think I graduated high school already. But like when we went outside, like obviously there were no cell phones and none of that shit. And so we were just forced to be like, where's everybody going to be? Okay, they're going to be at the mall. What time? I don't know. Go show up and see if they're there. Like that's the shit we used to do. We used to like ride our bikes and catch the bus to the mall, hoping that our friends would be there. And if they're not, then I don't know, go find something to do yourself. But that's how we knew. Like we would just go down the street to people's houses and then look at the shoes in the front door to see, oh, is our friends here? And then that's how we would just walk up to the door and like knock, knock, knock.
Oh.
And then, hey, and then one of our friends would answer the door and just let us in. And obviously they would let us in because there was no parents there at all. Like, so we just hung out at people's houses.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's another internet thing. We're able to kind of, socialize over the internet and actually plan things out.
I feel like that made us like really lazy. Our generation.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, because you guys also cancel plans over text. And like when we were kids, when we were growing up in my generation, you didn't cancel plans. If I said, I'm going to be at like Ala Moana Shopping Center at 4:00, standing in front of like the Radio Shack or whatever store it is, then that's where I was going to be. That's it. And then we just waited around for like 30 more minutes. And if nobody else showed, then that was their group. Boom, done. That's it. But now if you don't want to go out, you're like, oh, I'm going to text them and say, I don't want to go. No, don't be a fucking pussy. You said you're going to go. And that's the way we did it. And if our friends did not show up constantly and they kept ditching us, then fuck it. We just wouldn't invite them anymore.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Like, I think that from our generation, as in parenting style too, taught us that like, you told me something. You told me this. I expect this. Like, that's it. Like, we shook hands, high five, fist bumped it, whatever. That was it. You said you were going to do it. You better fucking do it. If you're not going to be there, then, you're not going to be there. And then we just ditch you and never call you again. Ever.
It's similar for us, except there's like actual internet for us to communicate over. I feel like a huge thing now that wasn't there before was probably like voice calls or video calls, that sort of thing. Being able to talk to someone without actually having to be there in person.
Yeah, we didn't have that. We just said, where are you? And we like memorize what the streets are. We know things. We always have landmarks in our head. We'd have
Don't.
Oh,
Dude.
that's why we use a
GPS.
GPS so much.
I know you fucking GPS everything. Like, we would memorize locations and say like, I'm here. What side? What street are you on? What time? We'd memorize everything. We'd memorize when the bus was gonna come. We'd memorize, and once we got like beepers, you know what beepers are? Pagers?
No.
I've heard of them.
Oh my fucking God. Okay. So a pager is like a device, imagine like the size of a credit card, but thicker. And there's a small screen on the front of it, and there's only like 2 or 3 buttons. So you had it was assigned to a phone number. So you'd go to a payphone. Wait, do you know what a payphone is?
Yes.
Yes. That much I
Fuck.
know.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so you go to a payphone, you dial the pager number, then you punch in the number of the payphone, then you hit pound, or the hashtag symbol gets
Yeah.
used. And then you'd wait by the payphone for your friend to call you back, because my pager would beep with a phone number, and I'd call that phone number and say hello, and then now we communicate. That's the way we communicated. When are they gonna call? Who the fuck knows? Are you gonna just wait by the payphone? Yes, you will. Right? That's what we did. We put money in the payphone. We waited. Sometimes you wait for a minute. Sometimes you wait for a fucking hour. Imagine standing by a payphone for an hour, waiting for it to ring, just standing there. That's what we did. That's how we communicated.
Yeah, sorry. I would get bored so quickly.
I know. That's why we're talking about attention spans. Like, my generation's attention span is significantly better because we're used to being bored. I can just sit down and then start thinking about things by myself in a room. I don't need a phone or a computer or anything. I can sit there.
Mindfulness.
Fuck mindfulness. Fuck mindfulness.
Okay, thank God. I don't think I'm that bad to the point where I constantly, have to be doing something. I don't know if it's just me, but I've always had like a lot on my mind. So I'm able to kind of sit there and just think to myself. But at the same time, sometimes you also, for me, I need the internet to keep me busy sometimes as well.
Learn how to be bored.
Learn how to be bored is crazy.
I guess that's the advice for my generation. Learn how to be bored.
Great.
Yeah.
I wanted to discuss though, how do you think you being parented reflected you as a person?
I think what it taught me being parented the way I was, being ignored and being left alone is, I think when I started growing up, I learned how to do things myself. And then when I finally had kids, I'm trying to teach them this value too. Like, no, you don't need this. You don't need this. Like, figure it out. Figure it out. And then some of my kids get really pissed off, right? They're like, start crying. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not scolding you. Like, just figure it out. Like, in one of my periods, we're writing like code for this Arduino electronics board, and the kids are irritated that they can't solve the code. I'm like, how many of you are getting less than a B or an A right now? And nobody. Everyone's getting an A or a B. And so I'm like, So I'm not punishing you for trying to figure it out, but you're all getting pissed off that you can't figure it out because the world's been spoon feeding you answers. Like, just try to figure it out. So even with my kids and my parenting style is the same way. I'm like, hey, figure it out. My kid's like, I can't open the water bottle. I'm like, okay, well, just let's figure it out then. I don't know how to do it. I'm like, try. Just try. Like, imagine I wasn't here, right? So I'm telling my kids, like, when I was at home and my parents weren't around, how do I open the jar? I don't know, man. Figure it out. How do I get the cookies that my mother hid on the top shelf and thought no one would figure it out? Go get a chair. Figure it out. And so I left my kid there for like an hour while she's crying. And she finally like took her feet, sitting down on the ground, took her feet, put both of the bottoms of her feet around the water bottle, double gripped the top with her two hands, and then opposite twisted so it came off. I'm like, oh, good. You got it open.
Wow, you did it.
Like yourself, right? Like that's a lesson. I'm not just going to grab the bottle open for you. So that is something that I think as a parent, what I've learned from being raised as a Gen X is like, it's fucking difficult. Go fucking figure it out. Stop being a little bitch about it.
I don't know. This kind of relates, but then my parents also raised me with really high expectations since as a child I was, doing good in school and all that. I was getting awards. But because of that, I think that also made them kind of more strict as well as more overprotective, which to the point that I remember getting yelled at for getting a B when I was in middle school, which I think, like, looking back on it, that's kind of crazy. But
yeah,
that's why that also, I don't know, for me, it always makes me kind of wonder, like, oh, am I a disappointment for not being as good as I used to be back then? But that might just be me for having more strict parents. I know they mean well. It's just that it also kind of, impacted me, making me think, like, oh, I have to always be like how I used to be. I have to be the perfect student as well as the perfect daughter, which I know I'm not. No one's perfect.
You're definitely not perfect.
Thank you.
We're just making sure. Let's make that clear. Chance, I know you come here for lunch and you're not my student, but you're not perfect either.
Thank you.
Yeah. Build yourself up.
Okay.
Fight through your trauma.
Oh yeah. My parents or my dad just gave me a phone when I was really young. And then he just didn't do anything with me. He didn't give me like any limits, like, oh, you have to be, after like 2 hours you can't be on the phone. He just let me do whatever.
Oh,
and I just like,
really? For me, I had like the 2-hour limit, and they were strict on that.
No, yeah, I didn't have that.
Oh.
Because he threw that to you as a babysitter because he didn't want to watch you.
Yeah.
He didn't want to care for you.
And then I feel like if he didn't do that, he would have just given me back to my mom.
Oh.
Yeah. But see, I think you're much more resilient now because of it, right? Like, you are going to grow up, and then the minute you have a kid, I think you're going to be opposite. You're going to play with your child. You're going to have a good time. Like, every moment for you and your kid, I think will be at like the mall or the park or the beach or the playground or whatever it is. No, I see it, man. I see like you can do this opposite switch. I don't think you're going to be that person because I see you like having a good time with your friends, and I think you enjoy that joy.
Yeah.
I think you really are going to enjoy like having a good time when you have a kid.
Just don't be their best friend.
Yeah.
Don't be their friend.
Do you believe that our generation was like everything was just given to us?
I think here's why, because it perpetuates, right? So my generation had nothing, which means the millennials had a little more something, right? And then, but they were the me generation. They were the let's take selfies. That generation sparked the whole selfie bullshit. It was that generation.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. In fact, it was, if you go and find this Time magazine cover, it has a picture of a woman laying down on her stomach with her feet in the air, holding her phone and smiling into it, because the millennials are the selfie generation. They're the ones that started that. Let's take a selfie. It's like, Jesus Christ. So the whole filming yourself bullshit is not your generation. You can't blame Gen Z for that shit. That is a millennial thing. But who taught it to you?
I wonder. Wow. Millennials.
Millennials.
Fucking millennials taught you guys to always take pictures of yourself, always do videos of yourself, do these like run outside and be stupid and film yourself shit. It's easy for my generation to blame Gen Z for that weirdness and that weird behavior. But you know what? Millennials started that shit. Not you. You just took after them. Like, that's what you're inheriting from that generation is the Fuck it, let's go there. This is what your generation is inheriting from Gen Z. Excuse me, what Gen Z is inheriting from millennials. It is the self-entitlement, the hey, look at me, let's film everything, let's be silly and film everything, let's go out and cause trouble and do these like prank videos bullshit. That is not you. That is some shit you learned from the millennials. It's like how my generation, Gen X, learned how to be self-sufficient, but also be a bunch of assholes and be like, don't be a pussy and be stronger, that whole mentality of like machoism. We learned that from our parents who are baby boomers and the World War II greatest generation, right? We learned all of that macho bullshit behavior from then. We learned how to be slightly misogynistic from them. We learned how to call people that are different from us from them. Like my generation has this, we don't use the N-word as much anymore, but we definitely had this weird like macho attitude, like, we're so awesome. But then that's the bullshit that we have to get rid of, right? Yeah. Like your generation, Gen Z, I don't know yet what's happening, but it's your generation that has to make this switch and change. Like, I don't have to film myself all the time. I don't have to do these stupid prank videos all the time for likes and what, clout, I guess is that. Yeah, you don't have to. Millennials started that bullshit and then you inherited it. That's their problem that they gave to you.
Yeah, I feel like the issue is that we're also inheriting things from many different generations rather than just
our
millennials,
parents.
just this, just our parents. We also inherit things from, I don't know, just anyone that influences us. Back to the like social media thing, but we have a lot of sources out there that could influence who we are as a person, what we think. And I feel like seeing that as a child too, being exposed to the internet, that kind of, puts a lot into your brain about, oh, am I supposed to think this way? Am I supposed to think this way? And
you're not the only ones that are affected. Like even my generation is affected too. Like they see stuff online, they're like, they're gonna do this and this. I'm like, dude, what's your source on this? Like, you see, there's an overarching theme that I think we're all forgetting, is that critical thinking and education, right? Fuck, I hated bringing that back to like, oh, you need school, but no, like. Our generation, Gen Zs, Gen Y, millennials, Gen Xers, baby boomers, what do we all need? We need this like level of critical thinking and education to say like, oh, holy shit, that's not fucking true and you're just an idiot.
Yeah, no, I feel like common sense doesn't really exist anymore. It's not common anymore.
Right, well, they say common sense is uncommon.
Yeah.
And we say that common sense is really uncommon. Wait, Chance, are you texting right now at the podcast while we're recording this?
No.
Oh, I swear to God, like you guys don't even know how to end a podcast properly.
Yeah, I do. Like this. Thank you guys so much for listening to our podcast. This is gonna be the end of our episode. This has been
One girl,
one boy,
and one teacher.
Thank you so much.
Bye.